Simple and Out has a number of great ways that we can notify you about important things happening in your organization outside of the Simple and Out phone or desktop applications themselves. This way, you don't have to be looking at your board to understand when things are happening that you want to know about. We have followed user notifications, which can notify you every time a user status is updated. And we even have reminders that can notify you just in case you forget to make status updates. We have separate videos on both of those. Today, we're going to focus on the third type, safety notifications, which notify you about situations where your users are in a state that you want to be concerned with. So let me give you a couple of examples of what we might use this for. Perhaps you have users who go out into the field and you want to make sure that they get home safely at the end of the day. You could set up a safety notification at the end of the day that would look to see if users are in a remote state, and then you can let yourself know about that. Likewise, maybe you have a situation where you need to know that people were arriving at the beginning of the day, and you want to know if somebody didn't check in. That's a scenario under which, again, safety notifications can work for that. Maybe another scenario would be that you want to make sure people aren't on a break for too long, and if they're on a break for longer than a couple hours, you want to be notified that they're still on break erroneously. Now, for all these situations, safety notifications can work great. They work both on the phone apps for iOS and Android, as well as our desktop applications for Windows and for Mac. Today, we're looking at my Mac app that I am using here for Simple and Out Desktop. So let's take a look at how this could work. So I've tapped settings here, and in settings, we have notifications where all of our notifications are set up. But today we're going to focus on this bottom one, which is safeties. Now, when I click add safety, a disclaimer is going to come up, and this is important. This is a full stop moment in this video where we need to discuss the disclaimer, which is that this safety notification feature is not a replacement for emergency services, 911 or EMS. There are a number of situations, of course, where you may not receive a notification. Maybe your phone battery is dead. Maybe your laptop does not have reliable Wi-Fi. Maybe you are in a do not disturb state, so your notifications are not actively being delivered by the operating system. In any of these scenarios, it's very likely you would miss the safety notification. And so for that reason, if you are dealing in a life and death situation, you should rely on tools that can rise to that always on situation, not desktop or phone notifications, which can be not necessarily 100% reliable. So given this disclaimer out of the way, let's go ahead and set up a safety notification. Now, I could have many safety notifications, so you can name the safety notification so it stands out in the list. Let's say we're going to tackle my first scenario, which is to make sure that everybody gets home safe at the end of the day who might be remotely out in the field. So for that case, I'm going to say remote users home safe. Now, we can choose groups. This is another great use for Simple and Out's groups. We have an entirely separate video on groups, but I can go ahead and click any of these users. In this case, I'll just apply this to everyone. Now we have to choose the status. What status would we like these users to be in that we are going to be notified about? Now, in this case, I have all the statuses on. I'm going to choose remote because in this scenario, my company users are going to flag themselves as working remotely when they go out into the field. But again, you can pick any status here you need. And then we have days of the week. So you can choose which days of the week. Maybe you don't want these to go off on weekends, maybe only weekdays, maybe you have certain days that's not an issue. In this case, I'll just leave this as is. And then, of course, time zone. We'll need to know which time zone you're in. By default, this will choose the time zone you're currently in. Now, the final choice I have to make is when I'd like to be notified. You can choose either a specific time, or you can choose after a specific duration, a number of hours. Again, if you remember back to my 3 scenarios outlined earlier, with this one, we'll probably want to be notified at a time at the end of the day. But of course, for something like breaks, maybe after 2 hours would be a purpose for breaks. In this case, I'm going to pick a time at the end of the day. We're going to assume everybody's done it today at 5 o'clock, so I will leave this at 5:30 p.m., thinking that hopefully a half an hour later, everybody will have checked out and on their way home. So this looks great. Let's go ahead and click to create this safety. So here I can see in my list of safeties, remote users are home safe. Everybody who is remote at 5:30 p.m. would trigger a safety notification. In the case of the desktop application, that'll come right in where all my other desktop notifications occur. If I'm a Mac user, that's in the upper right. If I'm a Windows user, that's in the bottom right. If you're on your phone, this will come in the form of a notification right on your lock screen or wherever else your notifications show up, either on iPhone or Android. And in the case of iPhone, this will be a time sensitive notification. In the case of Android, this is going to have a different presentation so that it stands out in your notification list. Now, one other thing about safety notifications is that at any point in time, I can tap on this or click on this and see the details. But importantly, I could also see any users that are currently, quote unquote, in violation of this safety or unsafe, if you will. So in this case, I said anybody who's remote at 5:30 p.m. on a weekday is going to trigger a safety notification. And as you can see right here, I have George Franklin, who has apparently been remote since 5:30 yesterday. And because of that, George Franklin could be unsafe. And this allows me to click or tap on these users in order to get their contact information, see their history if I'm allowed, and maybe reach out to them and say, hey, I noticed that you're still out in the field. Are you okay? And then do whatever I need to do to appropriately take care of that. So that's safety notifications. It's a great way to get notified only in times when something's going on that you've chosen to care about.